Chaplaincy everywhere. Recognising World Mental Health Day, we invited chaplaincy and well-being practitioners to gather together, recognising we are better together to support our chaplaincy contexts and offer crucial self-compassion care. It is now great to offer this recording of the webinar as we approach Interfaith Week.
Hi, I'm
Hi, Chris.
Director of Chaplaincy and Spirituality for Methodist Homes, MHA, which some of you may be aware of, others perhaps not, but we operate 90 care homes and about 70 retirement living schemes, flats for older people, and employ about 130 chaplains across the UK. It has been, as you might imagine, a pretty devastating time. Just to give you one example, it's perhaps not how the data is always presented, but I think it gives you pause for thought. It's often said that about half the deaths that have taken place through COVID have been in care homes. That means if you take the government's figures at the moment, about 21,000 deaths have happened in a population of 500,000, and 21,000 deaths have happened in a population of 67.4 million. So the impact on care homes has been colossal, certainly per capita the most devastating. And I visited a care home during the lockdown period that had been very badly affected. And I said to the staff, how many of the residents do you think might have died during this period? And there have been many, many fatalities. And I was quite surprised that they said, oh, we've talked about that. And the answer was one. And I'd have thought psychologically you'd want to say, oh, probably, you know, more than that, but their honest opinion, because we look after people in care homes usually for 2 or more years. So the losses have been quite devastating for individual members of staff. Justin talked about kind of operating in an emergency context, and I was in the NHS for 20 years, and only once was I involved in a major incident, a MAJAX, which, to be honest, from its starting to being very well under control, was about 4 hours. It was a serious RTA on the M62. We operated Gold Command at MHA for 101 days before stepping down to a less intense process of management. So I think the living with dynamic uncertainty, or what some colleagues in the NHS are also calling a chronic emergency, has been very, very costly. And I think within that, chaplains have been valuable narrative partners to staff and to residents and to relatives as they seek to kind of comprehend the experiences that have happened to them. And that role, again, that's already been touched on, of peripatetic pastoral care matters so much. I think, just to finish, I would also echo the comments of colleagues about moral injury, and I think that's really significant. And from my point of view as a director in the organisation, as well as being in charge of chaplaincy, so part of the senior decision-making team back in February and March particularly, I look now, I'm very glad to say we haven't recorded a death attributable to COVID for about 9 weeks. But it also makes me think, how many of those deaths were avoidable? Now, maybe we can say we could have known more, we could have acted differently with better information, but that's the kind of reflection I think people are having done the best that they could with the information they had, but now feeling actually we're in a different place, and maybe those decisions could have been different.
Thank you so much, Chris.
We're now going to move 120 people into breakout rooms with our keynote speakers and other leaders. This is the first breakout room of 2. Please bear with us for a moment. Thank you.
Yeah, very briefly then. I think one thing that was said early in our discussion, I thought was really helpful about chaplaincy and its need, preparing people for an uncertain future. And it's interesting who our teachers might be in order to do that, because it's sometimes the people who see most control in their life and their finances and so on who have been most disturbed and disrupted by this. And other people come from contexts or experiences where uncertainty is more of a given. and perhaps there are
Yes.
things to learn, and transcultural learning there, for example. We talk quite a bit about moral injury, technology and access to people we are caring for, and also young people and their needs and how to meet those at this time.
Thank you so much, Chris.